Hey!
Here we go, brother.
We're here at Creep Recording Studios in Hostel City, USA. It's the Rock and Wrestling Connection Podcast.
Hey now, brother.
We're going to talk about rock. We're going to talk about wrestling. We're going to talk rock and wrestling.
We're on the air.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rock and Wrestling Connection.
All right, here we go. We're back, and Rocko's with us. Eric's with us. What's going on, Eric? How's it been?
Still alive.
There we go. We still doing
Eric's
it.
still here with us.
Rocko's with us. Jay, how you been?
I'm great. Glad to be here. Talking music, matches, and mayhem.
The big three.
We're gonna dive into some of Rocko's notes today, and then we're also gonna talk about music and matches and mayhem that took place in 2020.
Ooh.
So,
What a great year.
Yeah, Rocko's back. We're gonna kind of like add to the previous episode.
It's like a fine wine, 2020.
Yeah.
It's like Mad Dog.
Yeah, it is like Mad Dog.
The aftertaste lingers.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you can't smell or taste. And then
2020
you
was a
don't
drink.
Yeah, I still have no smell or taste.
Neither do I.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Me and Rocko.
Yeah, my cheap cigars just don't taste like anything now.
Those are Cubans. I got you.
I'll have to take your word for
How long has it been? 3 weeks?
No, no.
Now that we've done another episode.
Right. Oh, since
No,
I could smell.
Yeah.
3.5 months.
Holy shit.
I have a lot to look forward to. It's only been 3 weeks for me.
Right. Yes, it makes cooking a very exciting thing.
Are you eating more healthy?
Hell no! Come on, man.
Come on.
So you can't, but you don't even know what you're eating.
Right. Well,
Well, you look
I
at
have
it.
some sense of taste. I have almost very. I'd say 80% smell, 70% taste.
Oh, really?
So
That's more than I got. I haven't even had
Right.
COVID.
Not good taste, but it just the tasting taste. And so, but now, as of like 2 weeks ago, now I have very often a constant burning smell in my nostrils. Like I cooked one day. I cooked scallops. Oh, it was scallops and salmon, and it was delicious. And then I kept thinking I left the stove on. I kept going in the kitchen. I said, hey, does everyone smell something burning? He said, no. So then I assumed I was having a stroke, right? So I was like,
Naturally.
I don't want to be all like, look at messed up Bret Hart. He couldn't do the Aladdin play anymore. And like, oh, no. So anyway, so I was like, sorry, I shouldn't make fun of Bret Hart. And then, so I was like, no, maybe I'm just having like a very long-term, minor, constant stroke. But I think it's actually the nerves coming back and letting the smell come through. But for now, I have the mono smell. It's either nothing or burning. So
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I have burning to look forward to.
burning to just like the afterlife.
I went with my old lady to a nice restaurant last week. And
Alleged.
Alleged. We were at Izakaya at the Borgata.
Oh, okay.
I'll give them a shout out.
Right.
I'm ordering all this shit off the menu, just forgetting that I have no taste or smell like an asshole, and it just is getting. I'm like, why did I order this? Like, it's like, what?
I'll have the mashed
I
potatoes.
should have just ordered whatever was the most filling, right?
Yeah, mashed potato.
Can I have some more rice and mashed potatoes, please? Thank you.
But here we are. Enough about COVID.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about wrestling
Rock and wrestling.
in the year of COVID.
In the year of COVID.
Well, in the year of COVID, wrestling didn't really slow down like the first 2 months.
Well, let's start off with the no crowd. I thought the way WWE ran it with no crowd, it looked lame. And then AEW started piping in a little bit of crowd music, but they had the wrestlers as the crowd. And then I think everyone else started following suit after that. And it kind of made it, the silent wrestling is not for TV.
No, it's too eerie.
Yeah,
it's
it's weird to watch, right?
Wrestling is a performance, and it's inherent in the very essence of it that you have to have an audience.
Yeah.
Again, there are always exceptions. But you have to have an audience. And I thought my favorite workaround, or the most polished, I should say, was Major League Wrestling, was MLW. The way they pipe in this very subtle crowd noise and then have some people, but it's far enough away that they're not like the AEW. Sometimes they're too close. So you see, they're just wrestlers and stagehands, and there's 30 people. The people are kind of in the dark, so it makes it like, there might be more people up there. Anyway, MLW kind of does a nice version of it. But they shut down for COVID and just did reruns until very recently. So they worked on it.
The big story this year of wrestling was COVID. But, if we go back to January and go through some matches that happened throughout the year, obviously this time last year, as everyone in the wrestling world knows, it's Wrestle Kingdom time. So last year at the Tokyo Dome, when they had 60,000 people there 2 nights in a row, it was the retirement of Jushin Thunder Liger. What did you think of Jushin Thunder Liger, Rocko?
I was a big fan. I never got super into Japanese wrestling. Like I traded tapes, but I mostly was more interested in American wrestling. But I will say that one of the favorite wrestling cards I ever went to, I was thinking about my favorite wrestling cards I ever went to. Not necessarily the best. And again, my taste and memory are very odd. I remember, it's the same thing. Jason and I have talked about this. I remember the bad tattoos I've seen more than I remember the good tattoos. Yeah. And I remember the tattoos that are matched up with people's personalities more than I remember just the pictures of very amazingly done tattoos, So everything is in context. And I've discovered when I think about my favorite cards I've ever seen, it involves like who I went with a lot or the circumstances of it. And one time, like I was working at nightclubs in Chicago, and I got a lot of people who were working in nightclubs like, I go see your shitty bands, come see wrestling with me. And so we would, and everyone enjoys it. Live wrestling is so hard not to enjoy. You can take a non-fan and they'll have a good time because it's made for it. And one time I was like, there's a big show. It's a pay-per-view out in Milwaukee. It was Super Brawl 2. And I so wanted to see Flying Brian Pillman against Jushin Thunder Liger. That was the big thing. I was a big Wrestling Observer newsletter nerd. I was like, I gotta see this. So, of course, we get in like 3 cars and we go from Chicago to Milwaukee and we go to all the road stops on the way. And of course,
we get them fireworks.
Of course, we drank beforehand and then we drank in the car. These are my drinking days. And then we did, courtesy of our homosexual friends who were with us, we went on a complete tour of the Jeffrey Dahmer bars. Jeffrey Dahmer had just been arrested. And so we went to all the bars where he would pick up little boys and had drinks at all those bars. Then we went to, and had amazing seats for Super Brawl 2. And also that was, I think it was Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan versus Nasty Boys.
That shit's crazy. I know the match.
I think that was that one.
Unbelievable.
And that blew my mind as well. Obviously, I was already a big Cactus Jack fan, and I think I bought a Cactus Jack shirt at almost every WCW show I would go to. There was a while when I had, and they were all the same shirt. They were like these weird ones where he's a cactus.
You gave me one of those.
At one point, I had like 10 of them. And so anyway, there was not a lot of merchandise to choose from at the time. And so, especially heel merchandise. So anyway, we went to that card, but I'll never forget doing the Jeffrey Dahmer bar thing and going with all my club friends and just having a great time. And then piling back and, of course, then going to more bars once we went to Chicago. But it was a great card.
Yeah,
so
you saw Jushin Thunder Liger.
That was not. I don't think that was his American debut, but that was his pay-per-view. That was his pay-per-view.
He retired this time last year at Tokyo Dome. Other matches that took place in January last year, Drew McIntyre won the Royal Rumble, which he would go on to eventually win the world title. A guy in MLW at this point, it was in NWA. Ricky Starks defeated Trevor Murdoch in a tournament. In the finals in a tournament to become the NWA champion, the Billy Corgan owned federation. And now Ricky Starks has gone on to some big and exciting things in the AEW front. So he's had a great 2020. What I meant to say was you spoke about MLW earlier. A incredible match that they had last year in January was Mance Warner versus Jimmy Havoc in this no-rope barbed wire match, which was just like off the chart. Jay loves the barbed wire matches.
He's a vampire.
Yeah.
MLW is arguably my favorite federation.
Yeah, so then and then in February, you know, COVID is nowhere to be seen. Wrestling's still working. I went and saw MLW at the ECW Arena.
I was there.
So yeah, the main event that night was Davey Boy Smith and the Von Erichs, the son of the Kevin Von Erich, right? The two boys, and they teamed up with Killer Cross, who is now carrying Cross in NXT. So another big 2020.
Wait, wasn't the main event Filthy Tom Lawler versus Blue Meanie?
No, then and then Team Filthy, Tom Lawler, Dominic Girard, Eric Stevens, and Kid Osborne. You know, you're still going to wrestling matches at that point. It's live wrestling.
I think the last wrestling show I saw was that one we saw at that GCW show at what's it called at the bar.
Voltage?
Yeah,
Yep.
that was like March 13th or 14th.
That was early on. Yeah, I that was the last show.
I love GCW at Voltage. It's such a crazy
So intimate,
time, right?
right?
Yeah.
We were practically in the bathroom watching the show.
And in February, the WWE goes over to Saudi Arabia for the Super Showdown.
It's a shanda.
And it's not only are they in Saudi Arabia, but Bill Goldberg defeats Bray Wyatt, who's having such a great run at the time, and they just kind of like slowed it down, and he becomes the WWE Universal Champion.
You really saw it in that first Saudi show, where it was a traditional money mark sold show. It was it was the Saudi, whoever it was, some Saudi prince, there's a jillion of them, saying, I want these people on the show. And it's all 80s wrestlers.
Yeah.
He wanted Yokozuna on there, so they had a big Asian guy on there. It literally was it was a house show that means nothing. And it was a sold show, but they pushed it as this big event. And it killed me because the front seats were these luxury tables with guys and Caiaphas just walking around, not watching it. The only people watching it were the people who paid tickets far away. And of course, families only, no women. You know,
women
don't get me started.
The first one, yeah.
Yeah, you had to, yeah. And they, whatever, don't get me started. That's helped me eliminate.
Well, the
giving
next
any
night
money to
after
WWE,
that,
yeah.
Rush defeated PCO to become the Ring of Honor champion. And then John Moxley, the following night, defeated Chris Jericho to win the AEW championship. So the WWE championship, the Ring of Honor championship, and the AEW championship changed hands back-to-back nights.
All 1 week?
At the end of February.
Wow.
In 2020. That might have been the only interesting, cool thing.
Super spreaders. They were all super spreaders.
Well, here
Not
you go.
yet. Wait
Now,
another month.
In March, this is my second to last wrestling match. March 8th, the WWE does the Elimination Chamber in Philadelphia. The main event was what was the main event on that one? Well, it's the Elimination Chamber. It was the one Shayna Baszler won with Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan, Asuka, Natalie. But literally, like, you know, there's like whims about COVID at that show. That's about it, you know, like, and then, you know, 3-4 days later, woo, whole world of difference.
Then we were in a hotbed of COVID.
Yes.
Then it became a pandemic.
Ooh, yes, that's the
Yeah.
topical word to use.
Right.
Yeah. But wrestling continued. Wrestling
It
did not
keeps going.
stop. It, like we said, we went to that last show at Voltage for GCW. That was the last wrestling card I saw with a crowd. And then pandemic hits. WrestleMania's coming up, and the pandemic hit. They're doing WrestleMania.
They're doing it anyway.
Well,
They did
this is
it.
2020. They did WrestleMania, which is 60, 70, 80,000 people in front of zero.
And it
Now,
was hard to watch.
didn't-
Two nights.
Yeah.
2 nights.
Didn't they? Someone crunched the numbers, and they actually like everyone was like, "Oh my God, they're going to lose so much money because of all those tickets sold." They
Pay-per-view.
actually did not end up lose because all the production was so much easier, and the insurance and the rental of the stadium. It ended up not being a money.
What
loser.
about that? Now, what do you think about the main event in that one with The Undertaker filmed like a movie?
I didn't see it. I had banned WWE.
Okay.
It was really cool. They did a really good job with it. Jay, obviously, everyone knows he's a big mark for The Undertaker. He was on the bump
Could be
with
worse.
the beautiful Kayla Braxton, and The
Could be
Undertaker
worse.
watched him and his wife get married.
Yeah, so good. We had to stretch it out over 2
Oh,
episodes.
yeah.
I was gonna say this is
Big
gonna
shout
happen
out
every
to
time.
Right.
getting married.
Plugging it. He's still registered, folks, at www.shop.com.
So then they do the Money in the Bank, and that's, once again, so no wrestling the whole year is in front of crowds. Money in the Bank they did in Connecticut in the offices. So what they did was they put the ladders and the briefcases on top of the Titan Towers or whatever the building's called these days, and the wrestlers wrestled throughout the building.
Let me ask you a question, Jason. There was already talk that they were trying, that there was a concept either from Vince or going to Vince McMahon, of eliminating house shows. Now, house shows used to be the money for wrestling. To oversimplify it, house shows were the money, and then pay-per-views became the money, and then it morphed into your TV deal, and now it's starting to become the money is the streaming deals, and as well as obviously the TV contract. So the whole paradigm of the business, the whole way the business makes money, is changing and evolving. And so there was talk of eliminating house shows, and also how that affects the wrestlers and how they get paid, as well as how you learn a lot of wrestling on house shows. And traditionally, wrestling is in front of a crowd. So is it possible, like, they got to use the pandemic to eliminate the house shows without appreciable drop in income?
Well, I mean, obviously they couldn't run the house shows, and of course, yeah, the statement came out that they're not going to be
Are they
running
going to
house
start doing house shows again?
when they come back. I don't know if they're going to do them right away, but I think the real point of saying they were eliminating house shows was to get rid of all those people that work for him that were on the house show crew. So that's, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of six-figure contracts. People straight up just, go on the house show circuit and, create those matches.
But
So-
if your business model is not dependent on the house shows for money
I'm not
anymore.
defending the McMahons.
Yeah,
by
no,
any
I
stretch.
understand. Yeah. And if your business model is not dependent on the house shows for making money anymore, well then, should you still be doing house shows? I mean, that's the traditional wrestling thing.
I don't think it was like really crushing them. Yeah, people said like they weren't really making a lot of money or not making money with them. But one, it's a great way to work out these matches and getting some of the people in front of a live audience before
Right.
you get them on television, and even the vets. They make money with it. Trust me, those tickets are so expensive. That merchandise is ridiculous. It's like
I mean, it was
$35 a t-shirt.
attendance was going down, and I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, they got to kill it on merchandise at a house show.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
right? They do, but
Every kid there is buying something.
But at the same
buy
time,
some.
it's like their attendance is going down, the sales are everything. They were talking about possibly before the pandemic eliminating house shows or cutting back because they
Definitely, yeah.
did the same thing. Like with NXT, used to be all house shows, and then they eliminated that. They cut that all down.
And then they did that Stadium Stampede match this year, which was in AEW.
That was festive.
Matt Hardy and the Elite, Adam Page, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks versus the Inner Circle, Jericho, Jack Hager, Sammy Guevara, Santana, and Ortiz. That was pretty nuts.
That was very festive. That was a much better application of the cinematic technique and using the lack of crowds to your advantage. I mean,
Yeah, like
as
I
a
said,
pure,
I don't miss the crowd in AEW.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
They definitely
it's
have done a
wrestling.
better
It's
job
it's
with
whatever it does. Experiment up. I like a little bit of everything.
I'm a big
Yeah.
AEW fan. I've been watching, I've been loving what they've been doing.
You ever watch DDT wrestling from Japan?
Yes, it's kooky crazy.
It's kooky and crazy, to put it polite.
Yes.
So this federation, they they'll have some of the barbed wire hardcore matches that Jay loves, and then they'll have matches where like dudes are like making out with each other and like sticking their buttholes and stuff.
or they'll have.
I'm a fan of that. Also,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know,
me
I
too.
know.
They had a ladder as a champion. They will have inanimate objects as champions. Like the ladder will fall on a wrestler, and the referee makes the count, and the ladder
sudden.
becomes champion.
nice.
And they have they have a match every year at a campsite where they go to like some campsite and like about 10 wrestlers just like beat the heck out of each other. They've done an apartment complex where like these wrestlers like ran through an apartment complex and different
Big
things
Japan used to do that.
would,
like, yeah.
weird things would happen in all these apartments. And when I say weird things, man, weird things. So every year their WrestleMania, believe it or not, is called Peter Pan. And this year, let's hope I don't kill the names, Kono Sasaki Takashita defeated Yoshihiko in a last man standing match. And in their knockout open weight championship, which I think is their main title, Tetsuyato Endo defeated Masaru Tanaka. So DDT Wrestling, if you people have not seen this stuff, and you can, it's really fun stuff.
The interesting thing is the mix of straight, very high quality wrestling with just insanity, and much of it is untranslatable.
Kenny Omega got
You
his, like
And
really
and they'll
down
get
there.
comedians and actors to do it too, as well as 8-year-old children and blow up dolls. And
Yeah,
so forth.
it's. I honestly like. I love Jim Cornette, but I also love fun in wrestling too. I'm not a huge comedy guy, ironically. We talk about Colt Cabana because Rocko trained with Colt Cabana, so sometimes we talk about the Chicago wrestling. He was a big funny money guy, and that wasn't for me. But I'll tell you, Officer Colt Cabana in Juggler Championship Wrestling was one of the greatest gimmicks I've ever seen in my life. And the Colt Cabana right now in AEW is an awesome, and his other stuff has been incredible. But I necessarily didn't love Santino Marella, like when he was doing.
I
that
did.
stuff.
If it's done well and it's just part of the card, I like it. Like there's other parts of wrestling that I don't really like. If it's just one match, I like a variety. I don't want it all to be the same.
But this DDT, they give each other ball checks and stuff. It's the wackiest wild stuff, and I love it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would like it at
I
first.
went with Rocco to a night of comedy and wrestling, and Colt Cabana did stand up, and that whole night I thought was hilarious.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was good.
That was great.
That was very good. And after that, a lot of other wrestlers tried to launch
Like
like
Foley.
side careers as stand-up guys or improv guys, and it was kind of funny because that really came from the indie guys. And then I know Dolph Ziggler tried to do it, and God bless him, I couldn't think of someone who I would think would be less of a funny man than Dolph Ziggler. Never having met him in my whole life, but things like that. It's very funny to me that because that was very spontaneous and genuine.
it was
that was
great.
really, and it was very. I'm not a big fan of social media, and I don't want to know too much. I like kayfabe. I don't want to know too much about my wrestlers.
Dolph Ziggler, and I say this in a very respectful way, is like the clearance rack version of Chris Jericho. He's like a Renaissance man in his own little way, just a little trashier, so to speak. Like he's had the comedy career. He was a Fox News pundit,
Right. I
so
forgot about that.
He's really very intelligent man, and he's got an incredible knowledge about rock music.
And he has legit amateur background too.
Yeah,
he's
fucked
no
Amy
slouch.
Schumer. That's a big deal. So
In a way.
he's definitely had an incredible career all around the board,
And
but
he's-
not like Jericho.
And he's been with the WWE for
Oh
a
my
very
God, yeah.
long time. And,
All right, we'll continue on with the year in July. AEW had Fyter Fest, and Kenny Omega and Adam Page defeated the best friends, Chuck Taylor, who lives like a block or two away from where we're doing this podcast, and Trent, the best friends, to retain the tag team championship. And the guy who was living on their couch or whatever, a couple blocks away from us, wrestled Chris Jericho that night, Orange Cassidy.
Oh, I like that. That's someone I've only briefly shook his hand, just met him once, but that was someone, as a fan, I was happy to see make it big and make it popular.
Orange
and
Cassidy?
And it was a right place, right time, meaning he busted his butt, he paid his dues, he did all this stuff, and that gimmick would not have worked 4 years sooner. It took a certain kind of hip/hipster, possibly ironic crowd to understand that gimmick and to get it over. And he was literally the only person in the world who could have done that. And it works. And it works great.
Incredible.
Where did Orange Cassidy wrestle before? Chikara?
Yeah.
Chikara. He did a lot of stuff, but mostly Chikara, as far as I know.
Before he became Orange Cassidy.
I mean, a lot of those Chikara guys worked.
And
A lot
Chuck
of
Taylor
other
was the
indies.
CZW guy. We used to see him.
And he did Chikara as well.
Oh,
there
did
was
he?
I mean, there's a lot of crossover. I mean, I can mostly speak for the Northeast. There's a lot of crossover in the Indies here, and it's funny to see guys be in mean, serious, bloody CZW and then be in family-friendly Chikara with the same gimmick almost. Sometimes it's very cool to me.
When we went to that one show and Colt Cabana wrestled as the old school classic wrestler?
Matt Classic.
Matt
Yes.
Classic, another one of Colt Cabana's
Right.
incredible gimmicks.
Right, and did it very well, and
It
that's
was awesome.
There's
awesome.
There's a certain kind of indie crowd that came up far after I left the business. That's their money is green, so it doesn't matter. But it definitely is an ironic, hip, post social media. Like they want to identify with the wrestlers. They want the wrestlers to be like them, as opposed to me, where old school, they want the wrestlers to be bigger than life. They want these big things. No, they want people who they can identify with, and that's a very different thing to me. But again, hey, if you're getting paid, that's what it's about.
All right, we're getting midway through the year. Evil, the New Japan Cup winner that year, defeated Naito to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and IWGP Intercontinental Championship. And then the following week in WWE, they had the Extreme Horror Show match, which we talked about earlier, how The Undertaker and AJ Styles did a cinematic match. Bray Wyatt defeated Braun Strowman in a Wyatt swamp fight. If you can believe that, Rocko.
Anything could happen in the wild and wacky world of professional wrestling. So yes.
And then in August, Orange Cassidy gets revenge and beats Chris Jericho. How about that?
La Champion?
Chris Jericho totally dissed me in a fun way one time at a book signing. Ironically,
Do you have a poster?
What
punched me in the
What did he do?
face.
here we go.
Punched me in the face
I had a
one
poster,
time.
and I just wanted
So-
him to sign the poster also.
So he's doing a book signing at the University of Penn, of all places. And I'm like first in line, obviously, second or third in line.
It goes without saying.
I was like there at 5:30 in the morning, 2 days before. So
I come out of my tent.
I'm wearing like some kind of like Acapulco gold trucker's cap or something, and I asked Jericho if he'll sign my book to the Ayatollah of smoking bolas. And he looks at me, and I think he sees the hat, and I'm probably smell like weed or whatever. And he looks at, and then he signs the book, hands it to me, and it says, "To the number one ass clown."
eBay.
Yeah.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. Well, I mean, whatever.
Has anyone, Jericho versus Cassidy, anyone make a mimosa reference yet
Yeah,
on
they-
any of these
Uh,
matches?
Right. Oh, good point. I don't remember.
Well, they had the mimosa match.
The mimosa?
Yeah.
Okay.
The then 2 weeks later, Brody Lee defeated Cody to become the AEW TNT champion. God rest his soul. What a couple great
Was that the
matches.
dog collar match?
I was going to say, what a few couple great matches then they wound up having leading up to that dog collar match.
Yeah.
Vicious.
Was that his last match?
I think so.
I think that was his last
Yeah.
match.
Now, my to go back a step, my impression of the Orange Cassidy gimmick, and I could be wrong, was the original one was that he was drunk, that the orange juice was spiked, and that was the joke all the time. And he didn't do the hands in the pocket so much, but the orange juice was a foreign weapon. There actually was orange juice as part of the gimmick.
He used OJ as a weapon.
And then it evolved farther and farther into the slouchy, no lockup, ragdoll style, and that's how I remember seeing this go through in Chikara and kind of become, and then in other indies, and kind of become more like it evolved into its own thing.
It's like the Millennial Kid, right?
Well, no, like I said, it was a different.
No, but I'm saying like
gimmick
is
at
that
first.
what it is now? You think like
It's its own thing. It's sui generis. It's totally like if someone was a non-wrestling fan or didn't know who he was, you really couldn't explain it to someone. It's like that proverbial, someone walks in when you're watching wrestling on TV and you're like, what's going on? And you have to explain, you realize how ridiculous it is. But it wasn't ridiculous like the months it took to get to that point. You're like, oh, this guy's dead. Sorry, Jason. This guy's dead, but he's not really dead, but he's an Undertaker. Get it? And they're like, what? And they're like, and he has this urn, and that's where his power is. You understand? What? When you explain it, it doesn't sound as cool as it really is, and that's the way, nothing wrong with that. And if you had to explain Orange Cassidy to someone who had never seen it, it would not make sense. But once they see it, they're like, oh, I get it. That's what it is to me.
And I always do, I take it full circle on this show. Every episode, there's always been a little rift between Jay and Rocko because CM Punk was the man who finally took the urn and destroyed it. And that was Jay's favorite wrestler.
Well, I'm more.
Rocko
First
and
of
CM
all,
Punk know each other.
I'm a Paul Bearer fan.
Yeah, that we
That's
agree
where
on.
it
We will
starts.
bond on that.
Okay. Without him, the Undertaker
right.
gimmick would have never worked.
I agree 100%.
Right.
Now here I'll interject a brief anecdote. My CM Punk off on several occasions sent my daughter autographed pictures, and the WWE did kids books allegedly written by the wrestlers themselves, including one from CM Punk, which is very odd to me. But they did, so he sent her books. And so she liked CM Punk. I would drag my daughter to wrestling matches and make her watch wrestling early on. And so that's the wrestler she bonded with because she didn't know from Straight Edge or anything else. It just was, oh, this is the person whose picture is in my room. She's very young. She was, let's see, I could identify it if someone smarter than me knows the date. But we got tickets. We were comp tickets to the match where, the ladder match where...
Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank. We were comp tickets to that.
And the one in Philly.
Yeah. And my daughter made a big CM Punk sign, and we were going. And I know what the story is, because I love wrestling and whatever. But Heyman, whom I love like a brother I've never met, turned on CM Punk. And my daughter, and made him bleed. And my daughter started crying so badly. And my wife turned to me and looked at me like, are you going to say something to her? I refused to break kayfabe to my crying daughter. I said, well, he'll be okay in a couple days. They've got doctors backstage, and he'll get his revenge.
So my buddy, it's kind of awesome. Like he watches AEW with his daughter, and he like tells me about her reactions and this is and that's, and she's had some tough times when some of the guys that she really likes lose or get beat, and but she kind of knows the deal. But I mean, still, like even when we were that young and we thought we knew the deal or whatever, we didn't know the deal,
right.
And I'm sure she struggles with that, and I'm sure your kid did.
I won't break kayfabe to her. It's not my job. She can figure it out on her own. I refuse to do the Santa gimmick to her. I'll keep kayfabe for wrestling. Oh, don't let her listen to this show, by the way.
Well, that was
Damn it!
That was 2013. She's still.
She
figured it out?
She was 9 then. So whatever. I don't know. Who cares? She humors, as long as she humors me and changes my diapers when I get older, everything will be copacetic. And you know how when you're a wrestling fan, people give you wrestling ephemera randomly? You know, like, oh, you like wrestling? I found this at a yard sale, or this is in my basement. And you're like, gee, thanks.
I've been trying to get rid of this thing for years.
Gee, thanks. I don't need this, So I had a bunch of, the big-ass old school 5-pound wrestling dolls.
Oh, yeah,
and so those were the
Wrestling
bath
buddies,
toys. For my kid. So we had Iron Sheik, which I still have. We had the Iron Sheik, and we had a couple other ones. And they played with the Plastic Man and the Batman figures that were sitting around. But we had an Undertaker figure. But to her, Jason, that was always the angry guy.
Oh.
He was just called Angry Guy.
Okay.
I was like, no, it's Undertaker. It's the angry guy. And I'm like, you're kind of right, but it's like the cold burning anger, the cold fury, not the, hot-headedness.
Well, the summer of 2020 wrestling continued, even though the rest of the world didn't. Bray Wyatt defeated Braun Strowman to win the Universal Championship. Then Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy had this crazy tables match where he throws the chair at him and is bleeding like a pig. What do you think of that match, Jay?
I love the violence.
Vampire,
of course.
Anything that has blood, I knew I have to just quickly refer over to Jay. And then over in Japan, Naito defeated Evil to win the IWGP Championship back. And then at Payback here in America, Roman Reigns defeated The Fiend and Braun Strowman to win the WWE Universal Championship. And they've been working on Roman Reigns for such a long time. He's been such a long project of Vince's, and even at the main event level, it's still always been like a little project. And now Roman Reigns is the head of the table. He's got Paul Heyman with him. He's the tribal chief. It's the best Roman Reigns ever. It's tremendous that it's not in front of a crowd. I feel terrible for the guy.
He had everything up till now, but it
they
did
would
not
finally
take.
be booing him the fuck out of the building for all the right reasons.
It did not. It did not take
right
until
now.
this year. They tried to push him
Incredible.
for so long and pushed him down everybody's throat, and it did not take till this year, and he deserves it.
And in a match that I thought they kind of just gave away real quick, AEW, John Maxley defended his title by defeating MJF. What do you think about MJF? He's been like
him.
super breakout star the last couple years.
I like him.
He's got a Mr. Perfect gimmick.
He's got a lot of stuff
Right?
going on.
Yeah.
I'm better than you.
Yeah, he was in Major League for a while. I like him a lot. I think he's good.
You're a big Major League guy. We're finding that out as we.
Well, you know why? Because it's free.
The more weeks and weeks we hang out together.
Because it's free. I don't have to pay for it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's my favorite kind of wrestling.
There's so much wrestling on the internet now that you can't even finish it all.
Right.
If you try to I love CMLL.
Right.
I try to. Now we talked about DDT being wacky and wild, but Mexican wrestling's pretty wacky too.
What about all these weird Mexican federations that are just held outdoors in tents?
Did you see the
and they're
junkyard
just,
one?
Blood it's just like
Schlack's wrestled in that, I think.
it's crazy.
In that junkyard.
It's crazy. These Mexico, where life is cheap.
We haven't really talked about Impact Wrestling that much, but then Eric Young is part of these layoffs that the WWE needed to do, and like you said, they really didn't need to do them because they make so much money. And then but whatever, it worked out for Eric Young. He went to Impact Victory Road pay-per-view and defeated Eddie Edwards, and he's the Impact champion over there. And then this incredible storyline has been happening in the women's division. People think it's a rib on her because her husband wound up going to AEW. Rusev is now Myro in AEW, and Lana is still in the WWE. And 5-6 weeks in a row, Nia Jax put her through a table. And anyone who knows what's happened in pro wrestling recently, Nia Jax has legitimately hurt more people in pro wrestling than maybe the pandemic. And now she is getting put through a table 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row. It was just kind of nuts. Roman Reigns then defeated Braun Strowman to retain the WWE Championship. Rich Swann, who I think I saw him maybe one time hanging out with the crew of guys we were just talking about that live around the neighborhood from here. He defeated Eric Young to become the Impact World Champion. Randy Orton defeated Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre winds up getting the belt back. And then we'll just finish it off. Kenny Omega defeats Jon Moxley to become the AEW champion. So now we have our third AEW champion, I guess. We got Jericho, Moxley, and now Kenny Omega, who some people say is the best wrestler in the world right now. Did he have the best 2020? I'm not sure, but he's definitely going to have the best 2021, I'll tell you that. What do you think? Who are some of your favorite wrestlers of 2020?
My current wrestling was definitely curtailed. I guess everybody was in the sense of 2020.
Here's what it is.
But and I feel like a lot of guys chose. I think there were a lot of indie guys that busted their butt, like like all those bar wrestling things that they do. Guys who were, and there were lots of feds. Like I don't know. To be honest, like. There was so many mix-ups everywhere. Everyone's roster was changing so much because of COVID and the financials for everything. I still like, they kept the same champion in MLW, and Jacob Fatu, they kept him as champ. And that's kind of impressive to me in the sense of you're going with the same heavyweight guy. You're not changing the belt.
Well, you know what? Me too. In that same category, under that theory, my favorite male wrestler of 2020 was the GCW champion Ricky Shane Page. I have not seen somebody have more heat than this guy. When I go to wrestling matches, when this guy comes out, I look around to make sure I'm not going to get fucking hit with something because people hate this guy, and he loves it. It's amazing, and he's not that bad he's a pretty good worker, I'll tell you that. And if he got himself in a little shape, I think he could get himself on a fucking real television show. No offense to GCW, you know what I'm saying. Ricky Shane Page is my male wrestler of the year. My female wrestler of the year is one half of the Golden Role Models, Bayley. I love Bayley. Bayley as a heel, Bayley as a face. Give her to me. Bayley does everything so well. Jay, did you have a favorite wrestler of 2020?
One of my favorite wrestling things of 2020 is Nick Gage's cameo appearances. If you haven't seen those, it's completely amazing what's going on right there. I go to the GCW shows. I like I've been watching a lot of the AEW more than anything right now.
Well, this is what we're gonna get ready to wrap it up. This is a new segment that we do. It worked so well last time.
Yeah, definitely.
But we're gonna bring it back this time. Is Rocko's tidbits, and Rocko gives us like a little thing that he thinks about
this week. Rocko,
I have a question,
and we're gonna see what he's got to say today.
I have a question because I have an answer. I got a question, but for everybody, what's the bloodiest match you ever saw?
Okay, I have an answer. We'll let Jay go first.
That you can recall.
That I can recall.
Yeah.
All the Tournament of Deaths were pretty bloody. The bloodiest match I ever saw, it was Tremont versus Nick Gage in the original GCW spot in North Jersey.
Now, do you feel that what would impress you is the amount of brutality, the amount of blood, or the amount of emotion based in it? Because I feel like a lot of modern day hardcore stuff or garbage match or anything like that is just two random guys together, so there's not a lot of emotion involved in it to me. So,
well, that match I think was his return to GCW.
Right.
I'm gonna go out here. I know the bloodiest match I ever
All right,
saw.
lay it on us.
Me and Schlack went to the Nick Gage Invitational. And it's when the one he didn't show up to because they threw him back in prison the day before.
right.
And Masada versus Nate Hatred is probably hands down the bloodiest match I've ever seen.
I did not see it, but I remember you telling me
And
about it.
I felt bad for Nate Hatred. I was like, this is unbelievable, and Masada won't stop. And it was one of those things where you're like, lay down.
The question is inherently, what one did you see live? But it can be a taped one too, if you want.
Yeah, you can. I mean, we watched
Next,
so much
who?
of it.
Next, anybody? Anybody else?
Bloodiest?
Why don't you go?
I saw Johnny Legend's Hollywood Championship Wrestling at a bar at the Club Lingerie in Hollywood, and it was the first American appearance of Rey Mysterio Jr. And Johnny Legend said, "Watch this kid." He was kid. He looked like he was 12. He was so tiny you couldn't believe it. And Conan was there. It was like, I guess Conan was bringing in the lucha guys, like he still does to this day. And this was like his second or third. And there were I want to say Chavo Guerrero Sr. was there. One of the Guerreros. There were some. I did not know the local guys there, but two of the local guys had the main event. Two of the best wrestling names I've ever heard in my life. Tim Talltree, the Twisted Tonto, it was a death match with him versus Steven Fuck You DeLeon. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, I guess in a way, one of the first indie shows I ever went to. We didn't call it that. And bands played too, which was Imperial Butt Wizards played and a bunch of other like LA weird, glammy punk bands played. But I'll never forget that main event because Tim Talltree hit Steven DeLeon, who gigged, and hit an artery, and blood sprayed everywhere like a lawn sprinkler in a bar, to the point of you could actually see him getting paler and paler, and the blood was so bright red. And this was like mixed crowd of like band, music people and wrestling people. Like, who goes to see but everyone was not smart, but everyone was hip. And they ended the match early, and you could literally see him being taken out in an ambulance. And next time I saw Johnny Legend, I was like, oh my God, that match was so heavy. He goes, yeah, he walked backstage and just passed right out. And we all had to hold the cuts closed on his head and get him in on the stretcher. And I was like, that was one of the best matches I ever saw in my life, and that's why I'm going to hell. But that was the bloodiest match ever, because I was 15 feet away from it happening.
We had Bill Alfonso on the show, and I talked to him. I told him that match with him and Beulah is this. It's sometimes, like you said, we've seen matches where there's blood all over the place and this and that. But sometimes you can see, like you said in your match, the white came into the guy. And you knew, Bill Alfonso, 135, 40 pounds soaking wet at the time there. I mean, he is bleeding buckets. And this girl is in great shape. She's dragging him all around the arena.
He was also in fear for his job.
It was the most insane blood, and I'll tell you another one that was freaking crazy. Undertaker versus Vince McMahon.
Ooh,
I don't know if it's a buried alive match, right? I don't know if Vince McMahon was there's a story that he was trying to impress the boys or whatever, but he fucking cuts himself so bad that the ring is just maroon and they're slipping in blood, it's like a puddle outside a schoolyard. It's squirting like the European Vacation. It's just so much blood coming out of Vince. It's just
that's true.
He's on so much steroids. He's so big. There's so much blood to go around. And then I think when he gets buried at the end, there's it's like mud blood. There's so because they take him to a dirt.
Guerrero and JBL. was very
Oh
bloody.
my God! Yeah, once again, yeah.
And what about
And
that?
those guys know how to use blood.
And what about that Japanese deathmatch tournament, the famous one with Funk and
Cactus Jack.
Cactus
It's all
Jack,
day.
where Jack has bled so much during the day, his blood is coming out. It looks like a fruit roll up on his face. It's so dark and thick.
Yeah.
That always
That's a
impressed me at
classic,
the bar.
yeah.
I used to play that at the
That's
bars
what started
all
it
the
all
time.
when it comes
Yeah,
to that.
yeah,
stuff. I
that
mean,
Definitely.
I literally have owned 8 different versions of that on VH bootlegs, better bootlegs, like a legit copy, and then on DVD, and then onto Blu-ray. Like I have owned so many different copies of that same thing. I'm so proud to own that.
I've
It's one
had
of my
like
favorite
12
things.
copies of Appetite for Destruction, so we all know what's going on.
When I was younger,
Well,
4 copies of it.
Priorities. Come on.
when I was younger, we would feel bad for whoever Abdul the Butcher was wrestling, and when he was started stabbing, sometimes you'd be like, "Oh my God, just stop already!" And he
Yeah,
just
it's
wouldn't stop,
ridiculous.
you know.
Right, yeah, he was a
It's
stabber.
no mercy.
Yeah, it was a
Well,
stabber.
it wouldn't stop, but that seems like a good time to stop right now.
Yeah.
It was the
Pencil.
episode 6, I think, in the.
I just
can
like to
now.
say the next episode.
It's
Yeah.
the next.
The next episode.
Yeah. So then
On to the
once
next
again,
one.
we want to thank Rocko for coming in.
Hey, I was already here.
Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Rocco.
We came back.
Thank you for coming back. You know.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Eric.
having me, boys.
Thanks, Eric, for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Here at the
mic work.
fabulous
Yeah, yeah.
Creep Recording Studio.
Yeah.
And what about the drummer? Let's hear it for the drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it.
Come on.
And like all of our guests, you were our most recent. Thanks again for coming.
Again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you guys soon. All right. Quick shout out to the Wrestling Cards and Collectibles Facebook page. A lot of great people on there. Pat, the king of the breaks, George Wilson, who introduced me to the place. He actually wound up sitting in front of me at a Madonna concert. That's pretty funny. He got Rod Live. Matt, he's got the craziest Bret Hart collection. Michael Lucas. Corey, this guy Corey, he makes his own cards. It's pretty wild. And, just everybody out there, it's crazy. If you need to get a piece of Becky Lynch's clothing from WrestleMania 30, they got it. A Ronda Rousey 101, they got it. Before I linked up with these guys, I had no Bailey cards. Now I got like 35 Bailey autographs. It's a great spot. If you want to go link up with them, it's the Wrestling Cards and Collectibles page on Facebook. Tell them that the Rock and Wrestling Podcast sent you. Jay, we're on some social medias.
All right, let's hear it, brother.
The Rock and Wrestling Connection is on Instagram. It's Rock and Wrestling Connection on Instagram.
It's very informative. You have many people's birthdays on there.
It's all about birthdays on there.
A lot of celebrity shout outs.
I mean, think of all the entertainment these guys have given me throughout all these years. The least I can do is wish them a happy birthday.
How
on
about
their
Twitter?
birthday.
Are we on Twitter?
We are on Twitter. Now, it's a little bit more confusing on Twitter. On Twitter, we are Rock ND Wrestling. So, Rock ND Wrestling. But the great commentator Kevin Gill from GCW, he found us on Twitter. So, hope he's following us now.
Okay.
You people can find us, too.
Oh, we're gonna get him in the studio.
We're going to work on getting him on the
Okay.
show.
Very
I'm
good.
working on that. Once I see someone on Twitter, I bug them right away.
Now I know we're not on Facebook because it's for a bunch of complainers. But are we on Facebook?
We are on Facebook.
We're on Facebook.
Yeah.
Are we complaining on there?
No, we have a very positive Facebook page. It's probably super rare for Facebook. It's at Rock and Wrestling Connection on Facebook.
Rock and Wrestling Connection.
And we're here in the Creep Studios. These guys are on social media. What's going on there?
The Creep Recording Studio.
You can find it
Yeah. Creep Recording Studio on Instagram or Facebook.
for all your recording needs.
What about any stock tips? Do you have any more stock tips for us?
Hot tips: sell Tesla.
Yeah, sell Tesla.
Sell Tesla.
I think so.
Buy Apple. Jay says buy Apple.
I would say buy a lot of stocks. It's what you know. What do whatever the rich
It's all
people
about
are
the
doing.
digital currency now. We're going.
Find someone who's rich
Yeah.
and buy whatever they're buying.
It's true. It's true.
That's my advice.